All right. How y'all doing out there? It's your man Sean P coming in live. This is the Sean P Experience. How y'all doing out there, man? I'm gonna do a proper introduction because some people are brand new to the channel. You're new to me. My name is Sean Polador. They call me Sean P. I am a self-published author, public speaker, a cultural critic, a cultural curator of sorts, and a podcast host. This is the Sean P Experience where I bring on authors, filmmakers. I've had Sisters in the Archives. Now I have a genealogist. I've had illustrators. I bring in just interesting people that I want to pick their brain on how they do what they do, and maybe some of us get a little bit of that magic in what we do. Today I have a very, very special guest. For the first time ever, I have an actual genealogist on the Sean P Experience. That's right. Tracing our roots. We're going back in our bag, man. I got my sister right now, Micha Anders, genealogist. How you doing, my sister?
I'm good. Good evening. Good evening.
Yes, I'm very, very excited about this show. I cannot wait. Cannot wait to get you in the building. Um, I try to narrow my questions down to keep it in a tight window, but I have too many questions, right? So I'm gonna get straight into it. This is called Sean P. Experience, sitting with the griots. For those that don't know, the griots are our old ancient storytellers. They kept the tale
hmm
through music, song, dance. They were warriors, scholars, diplomats, etc. I love asking my guests, how do you feel about being a modern day griot and what you do in particular? Do you feel like you're a storyteller? Do you feel like you're a griot for a female? Griot. Do you feel that energy, my son?
So I really do, but I never would call myself that because I always think of that as something that the elders do, right? It's the elders. So in my mind, but that's literally my job every day is to tell stories, to bring stories to life, to keep them going forward, to pass them down to the next generation. So I guess I am.
Yes, you are my sister. And shameless plug, I try to avoid doing this. Shameless plug, myself and my partner Kobe Pie last year had a book called The Modern Day Griot.
Mm.
And we break down chapter by chapter the history of the griot, break down their roles in society, and then we bring it to a modern day format to people that we pick to highlight who are modern day griot filmmakers, comedians, all kinds of people are modern day storytellers in different ways. Podcast hosts, radio show hosts, they're storytellers, right?
Mm-hmm.
What you doing, in my opinion, watching your page and what you do, you are definitely a griot team, my sister.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Keep that
Yeah.
mind going. Yeah, yeah. So I love a good origin story. I love asking this question. How did you come across this lane? How did you find this way? When did that
So
hit? What was the jump off point?
yeah, so I think it found me. I think it found me. I went to school. I have two degrees. My undergrad degree is in art, graphic design, photography, and Spanish. So that's what I did for undergrad. And then I would decide, okay, I love photography. I'm going to be a photographer. So then I went back and got my master's degree in photography. It's a 3-year program. I'm deep in my program, and I'm working, I'm researching, and I start to have a shift in what I'm doing. And I end up finishing off making my master's thesis, which is kind of the cumulative project at the end. Um, it was about the genealogy of 11 people, and it was all done in textiles of all things. So I'm getting a degree in photography making quilts. So I started making quilts because so many of us, we don't have a big paper trail. That's not what got passed down, right? We had things passed down like grandma's quilt, or I have a steam trunk that somebody's luggage was in, and I have that. Or I have my dad's record collection when he passed away. So the things we get are things. They're not necessarily papers that get passed down. And so I did this big project, and I decided to make these art pieces that told people's family stories through art. And like I said, it was for 11 people. And I got so much pushback at school, you wouldn't even believe, right? Because they're like, you're here for photography. You're supposed to be, doing this. You're off researching all the time. I was like, well, clearly I'm finding my calling. And in that process, some of the people who I'd researched, they said, hey, could you keep going? I said, I would love to. I had done my work before, kind of like we were talking about before we started the show. I'd done my genealogy. I'd looked into my history. Um, I loved helping other people. I loved, as I say, reintroducing them to their ancestors. Some they'd heard their names, so they didn't know much about them. Other times, it's people they never knew existed. I'm literally giving them back through this process a history that was taken from them, that was lost to them. And that's how I got started. So again, not a path I chose. It found me and I loved it, and I've just created this whole little world for myself.
And this is why I love that question about the origin story, because a lot of people, I mean, some folks know earlier in life what they want to do, and they're on this trajectory since 5 years old. That's cool, but like more so than not, a person on their path, they just the lane changes, and people around you like, man, you got a degree in this. Even I get that sometimes from what I do. I have a master's degree in this, and what you're doing, but it does all connect because you said you have visual arts, right?
I do. So
So
visual
tell
arts,
us,
graphic design.
good. So tell us, how does that come into play now?
So in
Because
a couple ways.
your page is very visually appealing.
Thank you. And I think that's one of the ways it comes forward because since I had this degree in graphic design and I just love doing it, it's fun to me. I knew I didn't want to be a designer. I did that for a while, and helping people's visions come to life, that wasn't for me in that way. But I love it. I love playing with color. I love making sure that I'm taking, especially genealogy, which can be kind of dull and kind of boring to some people. How do you share those stories? How do you keep it alive and keep people engaged? And I think for me, that's how I use my art, is I keep it visual, right? People are like, oh, let's look through, oh, what's next? And so because of the way I'm showing it, even just how I design some of the family trees that I make for people, I want it to be something you hang on the wall. I don't want it to be something that you make and it goes in a drawer for generations to find later. I want it to be up. I want it to be something you're proud of. And so I think that's one way my art comes back into play. And I also do some exhibits for people. So people hire me and my team, because I have a team now, which is super amazing. So
Come
they
on now.
hire us to do research and then create the exhibit. So it used to be two different groups of people, but it's like the people who did the research, we know the material better than any designer could. So
Yes.
having it all be one team, we know what are the things to make sure come forward and that people really gravitate towards.
You know, you mentioned earlier before we came on the live about talking to a group of young kids, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of adults want the young kids to know what they want to do early. What you gonna do if you're on the path, right? A few of my best friends told me, Sean, guess what? I wanted to be an architect all my life. I wanted to build and draw the plans and all that. And those guys are now designing logos, designing websites. So you're still a builder. You're just doing it with different tools. But the foundational things that your mind is wired to is still there. Attention to details and all this stuff
Exactly.
is still there. So I think what you're doing with the visual arts and everything is so vital with this. We live in a very visual world right now.
Hmm.
You gotta keep folks' attention. You're fighting for attention. And your page is very attractive. Like, you really scroll through it like, man, I want to see what she's doing with it more.
Yeah,
I
thank
want more.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's real. That's real. You mentioned photography.
Hmm.
So once again, doing this, we get to the archives later, but like you're going to places, you're filming. I'm sure. Like, how does that come into play? The photography.
So one way it's come into play has been through helping people go through the archive that they have, right? So I was given a talk the other day and I said every family has somebody who's got a box. And that's the box. Somebody in the family is like, we got to keep the stuff. We throw it in the box. Sometimes you know who that is in your family. Sometimes you have no clue, right? And so sometimes that person who's the one who got the box, like I've got these pictures, I don't know who they are, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with them, they come to me. And then because of my photography background, I know how to catalog, I know how to archive, I know how to take that image that's falling apart, scan it properly, start to fix it. So the face that's got a scratch through the middle of it, we can clean that up. We can get the coloring back. So through my photography, I'm able to do a lot of that stuff for people too.
So what you saying there about the enhancement and stuff like that? Are you currently a part of the AI technology wave? And we can do different things now and recreate things, and make it come to life. Are you a part of that wave right now with this?
I think I am. So I use it in a couple different ways. One thing is, even in my social media, sometimes there's not an image. We don't have as many images. It's harder to find them online. It's harder to go even into like repositories of old black and white pictures. We're not in them that much. Or if we are, they're not necessarily like it's us. It's a woman, a black woman holding a white baby because she was the nursemaid or whatever. I don't want those on my page. That's not the story I want to put forward all the time, right? I want more of an empowering story. So I do sometimes use AI because I want to almost recreate something that didn't exist. Or if I'm telling a story and there's no images of that person, I still want somebody to have something to look at. Like when you read a book, you make that picture in your mind. And then you watch the movie, that's still somebody else's interpretation in the same way, right? Somebody else picked an actor that fits their mental interpretation. So in my way, that's how I use AI, is to say, okay, this is my mental interpretation based on height, weight, descriptions, complexion, whatever, of what this person may have looked like. But in photo restoration, AI is actually really important because it helps when you have a picture that's super messed up. What it does is it goes in and it says, okay, we think we know what this should look like where this scar is. We think we know what the image with the pixels, right, on either side should look like. Now, we've been doing that for years before the AI wave came along. It just wasn't called that.
Yeah, being a history buff, I love seeing pictures of like Frederick Douglass or some of these iconic people. But seeing the restored picture, it really jumped off the page and come to life. Like you read some of their books and heard about in that Black History Month program, but to see them like that, it's a whole different feeling, emotion. Whenever you see that picture enhanced like that, the same thing with our loved ones, our family members, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the other thing is, I don't know if you've started to see this a lot on social media. People are colorizing old black and white
Yeah,
pictures.
yeah.
They feel so much more real.
Oh my
When you
goodness.
see the same picture that you saw in black and white and you see it in color, you're like, these are whole people now, right?
Yes.
It seemed old and like, oh, that's from a long time ago. But literally just putting it in color, you almost feel like you can relate to the people differently. Technically, that's AI technology.
Come on now. And I want to ask the AI question because for a while currently, it's coming on more and more strongly to AI. And people, I want to say my generation and older, kind of like holding on, like, nah, we don't want to deal with it. Nah, we're not with it. And they name all these negative
Mhm.
possibilities and attributes and stuff like that. But they got positive attributes as well, as most things do in life.
I think a lot of people are just so scared it's going to take our jobs. But
Yeah, which is a real thing.
But if you don't know how to use it, it's not going to take anything from anybody. You still need people who know how to use it as a tool. When Photoshop, like I'm a graphic designer, when Photoshop and Illustrator came around, graphic designers were not having it. We are supposed to take every letter and lay it down by hand and measure with a ruler. No, no, we don't have to do that. There's whole computer software. The same thing with a calculator. We're not using an abacus anymore.
It's
Technology evolves. You still have to know how to use it.
natural progression in life, right? I would never forget. I had a coworker years ago, an older lady, and she said, "Sean, years ago, my husband and I owned a photography a business,
Hmm.
But back then, every prom, homecoming, wedding, family photos. I mean, so many scenarios to where you need photos. But now our camera on our phone is so damn good. I can't even think of a reason to go and like hire a photographer.
Right. When's the last time you went and got your pictures with the family
I
sitting
mean,
with the backdrop? That's not really a thing anymore that people do.
so they had to close their business. Is my point. They had to close their business. I mean,
Hmm.
there's no more dark room and all that stuff. Like you don't even
Correct.
got to deal with all that. But that's the progression of that's time in life, man.
Hmm.
You got to be a part of
Hmm.
the wave. That's the catch.
That's what it is. Absolutely.
You're on the way. So before I pivot off of this, you would know this more than me. How is AI impacting the world of genealogy? For direct,
So,
in your opinion.
yeah. So it's been really interesting because I haven't taken any, but people are starting to teach classes on how to incorporate them. Um, some things it's doing that are actually really helpful are you get these records, like a census record, and it just kind of gives these snippets of information. And you can say, for example, say, okay, my family is on the census. These are their names. This is their ages. Can you turn that into a narrative? Now, we do that ourselves, right? I write those myself, but that's what I do professionally. But for somebody who's more of a novice or just kind of wants to have a quick bio, you can be like, okay, here's all the different sources I found, and here's data. Could you just help me write a bio of Grandpa Joe? and it'll just help you do stuff like that. So I think that's pretty cool because not everybody's a writer, and it can just help. Now, is it always going to look right in AI? Not necessarily. You still might have to do a little bit of work to it, but it at least can give you a really nice jumping off point to help summarize or better understand. If you're not somebody who even understands all different like genealogical records, it can help you take it and better understand what it is you're even reading.
So I mentioned pushback a little while ago when it comes to AI technology. There's a lot of pushback when it comes to like DNA testing, and there's so many conspiracy theories out there about what they're doing with your DNA and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure you get a ton of emails and things about that in your career. Give us like the fact versus the fiction of genealogy and DNA testing.
So, first and foremost, what I tell everybody about DNA tests, don't take one if you have any family secrets that you don't want to know about. Don't take one. It's not for you. But if you're ready for wherever that roller coaster takes you, dive in. I, for a long time, was kind of like, I don't really want to take a DNA test. Same thing. What are we doing with it? That's like a lot of personal information that I'm sharing with whomever on the internet, companies, who owns these companies. It's kind of all very questionable, right? This is what I realized. We literally put our credit card on everything. We put our social security number, which used to be, right, growing up, so sacred, like nobody's supposed to know. We put it on all kind of stuff, just random little pieces of paper we hand to people at the doctor's office all the time. During COVID, every single COVID test we took was literally a DNA test. Every single one. So we've given our DNA to the government at this point, over and over and over and over again for over a year. Anytime you've had a surgery, anytime you've had a baby, we are giving our stuff away. We just don't have any clue where it's going any more than we still have no clue where it's going. But in this case, like I said, it's all about pros and cons. So if you are just not up for finding out you have a sister that you didn't know about, or finding out that your grandma is not your grandma, or finding out that your aunt is really your sister, or whatever you're going to find out when you take a DNA test, which could be none of those things, but you never know. Don't take it. But otherwise, I think that the abilities for connection, especially for African-American genealogy, we can do things through DNA that there are no paper records that exist. There are none in certain cases, right? We're able to reconnect people who were enslaved together. We are able to put families back together through DNA, and there may be zero paper records to do that. So to me, that's why you do it, to make the connections. Now, I wouldn't say do it necessarily just to get your ethnicity report, because it changes over time, because that's kind of more of an art than a science. But for the genealogy side of things, it is amazing.
So one of my friends on Bookstagram, my sister Kat, about a year ago, we did a whole hour-long live, both of us, talking about DNA tests, and we displayed so many kinds of. They got so many companies out there now. You being an expert, could you give the audience like your top 2 or top 3 you advise? Like, look, use these in particular.
Yeah. So number one, I would say is Ancestry.com. I get nothing for saying that, but I say they're number one, and this is why. They have the biggest pool of people who have already tested, which means you have more people to match with and help grow out your tree. And the other thing about Ancestry is more people on there make trees. And half the time, the way you're making the connection is, oh, wait, you listed your great grandpa as Joe, whatever. My second cousin 3 times removed is Joe, whoever. We're cousins. And now I can tell how. And that's why I like Ancestry the best. 23andMe used to be a little higher on my list. They had, unfortunately, some breaches. And because of that, they've shut down a lot of things that made them so great. They might bring them back. I understand why they did it, but for genealogists, they aren't as helpful for what we do anymore. So I would not put them second at this time, even though they have the second largest pool.
Now, yeah. What's your take on that company? I can't remember the name of it, but I'm just trying to make a point. It's like a African specific company.
African Ancestry.
It's more expensive to do it, but it seems more pinpoint specific. It's not like a general, the Ivory Coast and the general Ghana. It give you more pinpoint. What's your take on that particular?
So that's African ancestry. This is my first thing, and I think this is really important for us to think about. We have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents. It grows really, 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 really fast, right? So African ancestry uses a different type of DNA testing. So ancestry uses a thing called autosomal testing, and basically it tests sort of everybody, or it's looking for data on everybody in your tree back so many generations, but it's not as accurate. Each generation, it's half as accurate, right? Because think about it. We get half of our DNA from our mom, half from our dad. So go back another half, right? So it kind of gets smaller and smaller. African ancestry uses these different kinds of DNA. So they use a Y test or a mitochondrial test, which tests your mom's mom, or your dad's dad. Now, when people say, I found out where I am from, not really, because so much of you is still not being accounted for in that test. So you found out where one ancestor line is from. So I think it's just really important when people take a test like that, thinking, I know who I am, you know who one little branch of you is, which is not to take that from you, but just know it didn't tell you who you are.
This is why I love having the experts on the show. We separating fact from the fiction. Somebody asked in the chat, do these tests reveal, oh, this is good. Thank you very much for that question. I was going to say it anyway, but you just highlighted it in the chat. Thank y'all for shout out to the chat. Do these tests reveal medical conditions in the family? Yes. So my best friend Cliff and I, for years, talk about this a lot in private. People always think about DNA test, like you said, where I'm from. I'm from this place, I'm from that place. Even as far as like height, your eye color, stuff like that. But like, go into some of the micro details your DNA tests reveal, like what you like possible allergies, the food you probably shouldn't have, things you probably shouldn't drink. You might be predisposed to certain things. Like your DNA carries so much information way beyond height, eye color, skin color, hair texture. Like it's way more, micro than that. So go into some of that, please.
Yeah. So for example, so there's 2 sides to that, because there's 2 sides to everything, right? So there's 2 sides to that. So certain testing companies, that's really their thing. So like 23andMe, for example, that's what they were made for. When they came on the market, they weren't here for genealogy. They were here for medical testing. That was their wheelhouse. That was their lane that they came into this for. They do different things. Are you predisposed is the word they like to use, right? Are you predisposed to Parkinson's or certain types of cancer? So it can be really helpful in those ways to know that. But for example, I carry the BRCA gene, which is a cancer gene. They test for the BRCA gene, but only certain lines of it. So like mine, I know I have the BRCA gene because I got genetic testing done at the hospital, right? So I know I have it, and it runs deep in my family. But it doesn't show up on 23andMe because they mostly test for the BRCA line that comes from people who have an Ashkenazi Jewish heritage. I don't have that. Mine comes from my dad. He's Black. There's no Jewish, nothing in him. So you can't use that instead of, right, proper medical genetic testing, but it can be a great starting place.
Because Cliff and I talk about this a lot. Now, I'm trying to watch my words carefully at this point, but it's my platform, so whatever. So like in the dating world, right? Of course, to be safe, yes, get your test. I get my test, making sure we good, right? But like beyond that, we need more people doing DNA tests.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say it's more important than the other kind of tests, but like if we possibly have kids together, we got to know what our child is predisposed to.
Mm-hmm.
But most people, you meet somebody wherever you meet, and y'all get y'all do whatever y'all do. And now you wonder why your child shows certain attributes and certain things they're displaying. And you're like, man, my parents never did that. But you never knew the person you slept with, what their DNA, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. But the other reason you got to do it,
all that, it's deep, bro. It's deep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's deep.
Yeah. The other reason, though, is sometimes you find out you're related. That happens too. And not necessarily like siblings, but like maybe you go back 2 generations and you're like, especially let's talk small towns.
Yeah. Like where I'm from. I will never forget in my dating phase, got a preface, my dating phase, I met a young lady house chilling, we kicking it, we grown, you know what I'm saying? I would never forget her grandmother saw me and she was like, the old school, what your mama name is? Who's your grandmother? Now, for some reason, for me, I don't know why I have a universal face, I guess. People always swear they know me. I don't know where that comes from. Anywhere I've lived across the country, long hair, short hair, people are like, oh, aren't you so and so? Like, no, that ain't me. But she thought she knew me. It was the scariest moment in my dating career.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh no, this can't be my cousin. Thank God it wasn't. We got the report. But what you're saying is real. You live in a small place, man, where it's like, this is a good conversation. I love talking to you about this. My mom and I said this, right? I saw an article recently about, it might have been DC, right? DC has the highest rate, I believe I saw, of like incest, right?
Mm.
Like in a family.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those folks didn't migrate to other places.
Mm-hmm.
I told my friend, not just DC, like there are so many parts of the country back in the 1800s, before that, before they had cars and trains and planes, people like moved like 50 miles away or 30 miles. You didn't move across the country away.
No.
So all of those folks, it's the same population,
Mm-hmm.
a couple towns over, you know. So
Yeah.
the likelihood of that is high.
In genealogy, we call it endogamy. There's a name for it and everything.
I like
Endogamy.
that word.
Yep. So
What's that word mean?
I have no idea, but it basically is what you're talking about, right? So I don't know like the technical definition, but what we call endogamy is basically thinking about a closed population. So think about it when you have everybody from an island. At the end of the day, they're all related 3 and 4 and 5 times over. Rural communities, they're all related 3 and 4 and 5 times over. And this isn't even counting people who knew they were first or second cousins. This is more like,
come on now.
Right. So like where my family's from in Michigan, there were only like 4 or 5 families that settled there. At some point, those 4 or 5 families had to find spouses. Yeah. Well, they're not going to find a spouse in their own family, so they're going to go to family 2. Family 2 is going to go to family 3. At some point, go down 2 generations, family 1, 2, 3, and 4 all are mixed in with each other.
I'm loving this conversation, bro, because my mom and I doing our DNA and going back to the 1800s and whatnot. There are so many last names we came across. I would have never associated that last name with my family.
Mm-hmm.
My mom's maiden name is Lewis. My dad, of course, my last name is Polidor. Outside those names, if I see a different kind of last name, man, we not kids.
Right.
So if I see a woman with that other last name, man, we good. We not good.
Yeah.
We might not be good. It's not that simple. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, yeah. The DNA test is important, man.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. Like I said, I did not start a big fan, but I became a big fan. But can I tell you a story real quick on why I took a DNA test?
It's your show, yeah.
All right. So here's the deal. Because again, I wasn't going to take one. I got a call from a family member that said that they had taken a DNA test, and on those results, there were all these people who they didn't know. Like this lady reached out and said, hey, I can't really understand how the two of us are related. And so my family member said, hey, could you look into this? And could you test? And could we look deeper into this? And it turned out that one of my family members had a different dad than the person she was told was her dad. And so because of that, there's this whole other family of half siblings that they never knew existed. So all these people are showing up on a DNA test. So I tested to try and solve that mystery. Specifically, that was the reason I took a DNA test, was like trying to figure out how all these other people who showed up on my family members' DNA, because we needed more people to test, right? So the thing about a DNA test is you don't just want one person to test.
No, you want more of your family.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Because again, you're only getting half from each generation. So, if you have your great grandma, you want to have 3 or 4 different sets of cousins who come from different lines test to help build everything up to move you back further.
Right. Mm-hmm. Now, what's funny is we were talking about fixing photos earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of almost putting the photo back together with the DNA.
Exactly. I love that. Yeah, absolutely.
No, but let's get into it, right? Because back in the day, people was getting around, man, more than we realized. So some folks who thought your cousin wasn't your cousin. Y'all probably was half siblings, or dad
Mm-hmm.
had a family across town. Mama had a baby early,
Mm-hmm.
and they moved you up north, right? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that was going on back in the day. So like, people find out, like you said earlier, if you don't want to know, might not want to do it.
No, no. The
You might
other
want to
thing
do
that
it.
happened a lot was people, when you were saying people had a kid early, sometimes that kid then got raised as their sibling. And all of a sudden you take a DNA test and it's like, why is it saying that this is their or their kid, but this is their grandkid? And like, they don't share enough DNA for that to be their kid. That has to be their grandkid. But they raised them as their kid. And you're like, oh, that's because the mom was whatever age or had whatever circumstances. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Perfect. Endogamy definition.
Shout out
Appreciate
to
it.
the chat.
I
Shout out
love
to
it.
the, I love my audience. Shout out to the chat.
Yep.
See,
Within
I love
local
definitions.
community. Yep.
I love words, definitions. I have an actual log. I won't dig for it right now in my bag, but I have an actual log. I write down words all the time. I love words. Wordsmith. So thanks for that new word. Yeah.
Yeah,
We don't
absolutely.
want to go somewhere. So I'm asking you a question. Not a viral moment. Just shake your head, yes or no. I'm gonna just talk. You just shake your head, right? So doing these DNA tests, my mom and I realized we can only go so far because certain people, other people, they're not doing their DNA test or their pages on private. And they're a different community. So I bet you money out of all DNA testing, they're probably doing DNA tests probably the least because they don't want to know their black and brown ties. You know what I'm saying? You mind speaking on that, or you want to keep it moving?
Oh, I'd love to speak on that.
What are you doing there? Talk,
So
talk,
for
talk.
a few reasons, right?
Okay,
So
go ahead.
so I work with people sometimes who are lighter complected, we will say, and they are trying to understand why they have black and brown people showing up in their DNA, or why they're 3% African, 3% Nigerian, 3% whatever. Where did this come from? How did this get in my DNA? And so that's part of the conversations we have sometimes, is like, okay, well, 3%, that's probably like a great great grandparent. So, but then the thing is, it gets funny when you have people who are mixed race, in the sense of, on your DNA, people will see you. So if you're mixed race and you have all your white side and they see your picture and they're like, oh gosh, something crazy happened and I don't know how that person's in my DNA. And really it's like, no, 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 we're still related on the white side. But then they don't want to talk to you if you try and reach out to them, for example, right? Because they're like, something bad must have happened, or this must be a slavery thing. So sometimes people like preemptively cut off contact with somebody who they're related to through somebody from Germany somewhere.
And we know things skip generations, right? DNA is just freaking like that. It's funny like that. It shows up weird, right? I'm gonna tell you a phenomenon I noticed here in where I live at Louisiana for a little while now. Once again, watching my words, but it's my platform with them. I know phenotype deal with your face. Phenotype, right? Different
Mm,
ethnicity. I don't know what you call different body types. I don't know what that scientific word is. But I noticed a lot more of the other people around where I live at, females in particular, their body style is looking mad different than when I was in high school 20 years ago. They didn't make those particular girls like that when I was in high school. And so whenever I tell a black woman this, most times they always say, "Oh, she got a body done. She got a BBL." I'm like, no, these are like these are different kind of women. I'm just saying what it is. I mean, on a scientific level, their body structure is mad different than it used to be. But I think those genes are coming out. My point.
mm-hmm,
Those genes are coming out, being more pronounced. You know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that, because I've had a lot of conversations with people about that same topic. Just
Okay,
like,
good.
body
Not just
styles
me.
are
Good,
changing, and why are these
good,
body styles changing? Now, here's something that's
good,
real interesting.
good.
I went to, when I was in college, I did study abroad, right? So I lived in Spain for a little while, and they have a whole different body. The lighter complected people there have a whole different body shape.
Yeah.
Every region, they have different
Yes,
body shapes.
yes.
And
I told you
and
before the
and
show.
there's not a universal look, even though we kind of think there is. And then you start to think about, how are things mixing? How are things
Yes,
coming out later? How are
yes,
people getting those curly, where'd that curly hair come from?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. DNA is a very interesting phenomenon within itself. It's like another unknown, right? Like
Hmm.
the universe is unknown and the ocean's unknown, but like DNA is like another one of those unknown things, right?
Absolutely.
It
Absolutely.
dips, it
Yeah.
jumps, it does some wild stuff, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
It spit out a certain eye color, or spit out twins, or it spit out. Like, where twins come from? Oh,
Right.
you know your great so and so. They was a set of twins. You be like, oh,
Hmm. Now,
that
here's
wild,
what's
right?
interesting is when people try to, what's the word I want to use? Trick DNA, trick genetics.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So think about this.
But not. I mean, I'm sorry.
You're a light
What they call it?
skinned woman.
They call it junk DNA.
Trick. I'm saying trick, like
Oh
to
no, no.
trick you. Oh.
I got you. I got you.
Mm.
I've heard of junk DNA. I just been like junk DNA. Okay, I got you.
Oh.
I got
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what
you.
that is. But I'm
After
gonna
the
look
show,
it
I
up.
got you.
Ah,
After the show. After the
I like it. I like it.
show.
So imagine you're a light skinned person, light skinned black woman, and you chose to go the route of passing. 1800s, early 1900s, right? So you chose, for whatever reason, you chose to pass for white.
Ooh,
And
ooh.
genetics will not necessarily let you get away with that 2, 3 generations later. Something will come out. But what if, because you know that, you intentionally choose for your partner, and this has happened to a client of mine, an Italian man. So anything that comes out that could be olive skin, a little bit of a curl, a little wider nose, you're able to say, no, 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 that's just from the other side. That's how you trick DNA. And then all of a sudden your family doesn't blink an eye because they're like, oh, right. It wouldn't be from grandma's line because grandma's a white person, even though she's not.
See, you said something earlier. I wanted to speak on it. And I skipped topics, but like I know a certain area around where I live at. It's predominantly one family live in that area, right? They got a particular skin color, particular hair. They want to maintain those attributes. They don't really have babies and whatnot outside that demographic on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They want to maintain that skin color, the hair. They want that. They pride themselves on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they got bunches of families like that I can think about.
Yeah.
And when you see them in passing, you know what that is. You know that family. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
know what's up with that.
But think about it. That's like some crazy, like that's science. That's like, we know what to look for to maintain this. I mean,
See,
that's eugenics. That's like a whole
it
different
is.
thing,
It
right?
is. It is. It is. Because back to my homeboy Cliff, it's a tricky conversation because you start teeter tottering on like what Hitler was on back in World War II, right? Trying to find the perfect race, the perfect people. He didn't want people
Mm-hmm.
to have mental health conditions and disabilities and other things.
Mm-hmm.
So if I just told you 20 minutes ago, if I'm a dating young man, I want a female with a certain DNA test result because I want to produce a certain result on
Mm-hmm.
purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like breeding horses, breeding dogs. It's all science.
It is. No love. Love's out the window at this point, right?
Yeah, it's not ethical about love and all that. Ooh, man, I'm so sorry. I'm loving this show. I'm getting excited. So I'm a big sports guy, right? Lifelong sport guy. We're witnessing a couple of athletes right now. They're the children of our heroes in the 80s and the 90s.
Okay, so it's so funny you
They're
say
the
that because
children.
I noticed that. Even at the Super Bowl, they're like, oh, so and so is the kid of such
Yeah,
and such. I
yeah,
was like,
yeah. Look at
whoa.
their brother, look at their sister, look at their aunt. You be like,
Mm-hmm.
that's why he's here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, science. But look, I love hearing the daddies talk loosely. The daddies is openly saying on TV, I found the mom on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a 7-Eleven. This is Patrick Mahomes' daddy. I went to a 7-Eleven for a drink at 2 in the morning. And I saw this woman, and I said, we're going to make athletes. She
And
probably
look what they did.
ex-volleyball player or ex-whatever player. She's tall. She got certain attributes. It's like it's breeding.
It is.
It's not about love.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to make this thing together, and we're purposely making a freaking super athlete.
But here's the thing, and this is what's, I don't know, we'll call it empowering. I don't really know if that's the word for it. It used to be done to us.
Yes.
But now people are doing
correct,
right?
They got books on that.
There's right.
I'm gonna get the biggest, baddest male slave. And I'm gonna get this certain kind of built woman. Now, this is an old. I'm going to the mythos, right? But he said, man, black folks dominate sports. Black folks dominate dance. The physical things. We did hundreds of years. What are we talking about?
Correct.
Hundreds of years of the best you and the best you. And then, man, Jordan got a 49-inch vertical. LeBron James is 6'9" and he can run like a small guy.
Right, because it was strength, endurance.
I
mean, these are the things that were, yep.
It's pretty obvious. Somebody said in the chat, I want to highlight this in the chat. Somebody said this earlier. The chat popping, by the way. I got to go back. It said, oh, here we go. I'm going to put it up on the screen. My co-worker just recently told me her DNA test shows she was 2% African and she doesn't know how.
Exactly. We were just talking about that, right?
If we all say all the time how our people were raped and all this stuff, that's what we say to each other. How do the other folks feel like they don't know how this certain thing showed up? Your great-granddaddy and your granddaddy was in the slave quarters that night. What do you think?
Well, I think about this, though, right? Think about this. All the images they show of enslaved people look one complexion. But that was absolutely not the case.
No.
Because think about it. Same as we're just talking about. If you have a woman straight from Africa and she unfortunately is forced to have relationships with a white man through whatever circumstances while she's enslaved, then her kids are half. Those kids, unfortunately, may have a similar circumstance occur. There were people. That's why we had the one drop rule. That's why it was considered we have to follow the mom's line.
That's a good book, by the way. One drop.
I read that. Yep.
Good book.
But think about it. That could be all of a sudden you go 4 generations down. That person basically looks white, and if that person who now looks white is with white people, that could be, not always. It could have been a beautiful, loving relationship. We do see that. We can't forget people did have consensual interracial relationships even back in slave times. But that can be how it happens.
Yeah. Okay, let me get back to it, right? We did so good just vibing. I have not literally asked you the actual question.
Oh, I love it.
We did 43 minutes. I probably asked 2 actual questions. We just pivoted, right? Back to the script real quick. So on your page, you have this thing you made where it's like the genealogy zodiac. Tell us like why you created that and like where did that come from and stuff like that.
Okay, so zodiac. I love zodiac. I'm a Cancer. My dad was a Sagittarius. So
good man.
He was a good man. So I love zodiac. It's always been, especially when I was younger in my dating days. I like that phrase. I'm not in those either anymore. But it was, oh, you're gonna date somebody? What's their zodiac sign? Right? Let's find out what their zodiac. Like, oh, we gotta figure, are they a match? And what's their personality and all these things. And as I was thinking about like who does genealogy, I was thinking about introverts versus extroverts, but I haven't gotten into that one yet on my page. But it's interesting to think about, does your sign impact what type of genealogy you focus on or how you approach the genealogy world? Are you more of a storyteller? Are you more about records? Are you more about making sure things are online? And I just thought it was really cool. So I used a little bit of help from my AI, right? To help me figure out, okay, like what attributes would each sign have as a genealogist? And that's how I started.
My mind going somewhere else right now. I told you when the show first opened, I have all kind of different kind of guests, not just one kind of guest. I had a sister on the show years ago. She dealt with numerology. I'm wondering, how you approach genealogy if you're big on numbers.
Man,
They're big
that would
on
be amazing.
birth dates. Because
Mm-hmm.
like, back to the zodiac, your birth date. I'm in the moon, and then this is this house, and that's that house, and these numbers, and it
Yeah.
goes into all kinds of things with that.
I couldn't even imagine. I think I would go crazy just with like, think about it. All of a sudden you have like 4 generations of a family and you're like, well, I wonder if this is why this person had this kind of job, or I wonder if this is why this person left their family and started a new family, or I would go all over. I do that anyway, just in terms of things like, oh, we find out that so and so's dad, maybe was an alcoholic, for example. And then you think about what life choices so and so made. And then you think, okay, well, now that I've learned who his dad was, but then your next thought is, but why was his dad like that? Now I got to research his parents, his mom and his dad, and figure out if that's why he was. And you just go back and you go back and you go back and you're like, everybody is who they are because of who came before them.
It's all simple science, right?
Yeah.
Back to the DNA. So I always heard a myth about my dad's side of the family. Like they love to drink.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my uncles, a lot of my cousins, all this drinking stuff. Never think about the science of DNA genetic wise. Maybe you're predisposed to this thing. Which is why
Correct.
I don't drink, I don't smoke personally,
Mm-hmm.
because I know the mythos about the drinking thing. But now
Mm-hmm.
I can show it scientifically on paper. Like this is why I don't drink. Like you know,
Exactly. Exactly. There's genetics to it. There's genetics to so much. But this is what I think is so interesting, right? As I'm just talking about people who are the way they are because of who came before them. What's even crazier is in my family, people made whatever life choices they did, and there's 2 girls who are sisters who have never met. I know both of them. They know of each other. Long story, not necessary to share. So, but their mannerisms are so similar. And only one of them was raised with the parent that they share. They have the same speech issue, like they have a little bit of a lisp. They were in the same sports. They excelled in those sports. They have similar interests. They laugh in a similar way. They've never met. Never.
and DNA is so crazy, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my dad's dad, my grandfather, on my dad's side, he passed before I was born. But so many strangers I meet around where I'm from, if I'm walking far away from somebody, they will say, "I know your grandfather is." Like the way you walk, like your gait, your stride,
Mm-hmm.
your whatever, your mannerisms. They're like, "Man, you just like your grandfather." I've never seen it.
So I just
I don't
posted a
know.
story about that I don't know, a few days ago that somebody else had shared. I thought it was really cool. And it was about sitting in the car and hearing somebody laugh, and hearing that laugh was like an uncle, and hearing the same laugh that their dad had. And then thinking, wait a minute, if uncle laughs like grandpa, who does grandpa laugh like? Right? It's the same thing. You're just like, wow. So these things, like you're saying with your gait, well, we walk this way because we watch so and so. Like, weird thing, the way I brush my teeth, I put my hand on one hip and I brush my teeth. It's super random. But then I was looking at my daughter brush her teeth the other day. She puts her hand on her hip and she brushes her teeth. And that's how my mom brushes her teeth too. And then one day I was watching my aunt cut an apple. I was like, that's how my mom cuts apples. It's like the super distinct way. And I was like, whoa.
We
Wait, like,
always sleeping on DNA. It's deeper than we think.
mm-hmm.
My uncle told me we had a bit of a health scare in our family recently, right? A couple of days
Mm.
ago. So the family come together, right? And my uncle said, "Sean, my great grandmother was big on learning and reading, educator, principal, superintendent for the school board, then for the region, big on education." He said, "Sean, all your reading and writing that you're doing, it's probably where it comes
Yep.
from."
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have that with music teachers, musicians, just over and over and over and over. And my daughter got it from, well, I got it from my mom and my dad. She got it from me, and she got some from her dad, and she has perfect pitch. She hears a song one time, she's like, let me play it for you. What? And then you think about, oh, but she literally has that passed down through at least 3 lines of who she is.
But look, you say something simple like, I'm gonna give an example, right? Like in hip hop right now, besides sports, hip hop. Have you ever heard Jada Kid's son rap?
I haven't.
Sounds like it. You know, he had a very distinct voice. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's very distinct.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When his son is rapping, you close your eyes, it's like, what?
Oh wow.
And then, not necessarily the voice thing, but like Lil Boosie, his daughter raps.
Oh.
Actually, better than him, in my opinion. But that's another time. There's other hip hop guys out there where their kids are rapping now, right? But my point
Mm-hmm.
only is, you were casting off on where they was always around the dad in the studio, and they was always around. Forget that part of it. They probably just inclined, they innately have a thing that most of us don't have because
Correct.
of their dad.
Correct.
Forget the proximity part. You talking about DNA? You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
you can be close to people and not be able to carry a tune.
I
Just
can't.
because your mama could carry a tune doesn't mean
Yeah,
you
you
can
can.
carry it. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
being around them. So
And that's the
sometimes it
opposite
comes
of it, right?
through.
Like certain people is like, let's just say you don't have a certain attribute, right? Your dad was a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. You was just bad with it. When your daddy a doctor, why you can't? Like, that's him. It's not me. It's my
Right.
dad.
I
You know?
didn't get that trait.
Yeah, yeah. That's not my
Hmm.
gift, right?
Hmm.
Um, what ask you next about? Oh, here we go. Back to we did vocab the whole show. You do this certain kind of genealogy vocab on your page too. I know you playing with words.
Hmm.
Tell us why you made that choice.
So, two reasons. On Fridays, I like to do things that are just kind of lighthearted. I call them my Friday funnies. So, I like to do things that are just a little less serious, but just fun in the genealogy because we're nerds, but like we are literal nerds. But we don't have to just be like. I mean, I wear glasses most of the time, but we don't have to just be dull with it. So, I love wordplay. I love words. I loved taking a regular word like joy, but turning it into a word that's really about genealogy, or making up words that are just so funny, but they're funny to us anyway, and taking them and just turning them into fun ways to tell stories. So for me, it all goes back to story, which is funny why you asked about right griots and griots earlier. So how can I tell a story about something going on in the genealogy world that isn't just me posting on my page? Here's a thing that happened with a client. Nobody necessarily wants to even look at your page for that. So let me pull them in through a fun post. And sometimes that's all it is. And then other times, let's start with a fun post and then, like, okay, why did she write about this random word joy? Oh, well, oh, well, that story is really interesting. Now I want to read the story and learn more. So that's why I do it. A little secret marketing, but also just because it's fun.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I love words. I have an inclination for words, I guess. So seeing your vocab on the page is always like, man. I'm telling y'all again before we leave out of here, man. Go to the sister's actual Instagram page, please.
Thank
Check
you.
her page, scroll, hit her up, comment. I'm sure she'll holler back, man. Very, very
Absolutely.
interesting stuff on the page.
Yeah,
Love it.
thank you. I
Love it.
think, if you, well, we're not interesting people by nature as a field, right? No shade to any of us who do this professionally, but it's just not what comes to mind. And so, any way to get people, so many people are interested in the topic, but literally have never heard the word genealogist. They don't even know what we are. They don't know what we do. So if I can help make what we do known, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I'm super into family history. I want to know about my ancestors, but they don't even know how to find somebody who does that. So if I can do something to just help people know, let's get this word genealogy into people's vocabulary. Speaking of words, right? Let's get it into vocabulary so if somebody wants to learn more, they even know what to search for on Google.
Let me go to the most important question of the whole night to me. Tell us about what's it like to go into the archives, to go into like hypothetically, you go to the courthouse, they have all these public records. You go to your local library most times. It could be intimidating. That's why I'm asking the question. There's most time a room in the back where it seems as if the staff ain't going back there. These big old binders and whatnot. It could be intimidating back then. Tell us
Mm-hmm.
about going to the archives and going to the records and old pictures and give us a snapshot of some of that if you can.
Oh, absolutely. So, first of all, you have to give a shout out to all of the staff, the librarians, the archivists, the curators. None of this would even be accessible to us if they hadn't made it so. They work so hard. And most of them, I have to say, they're so lovely. They want somebody to come. They work so hard. They know their stuff. Come in and ask them a question. A lot of times you're like, oh, either they're intimidating or they just don't seem like approachable or whatever the thing is in your head that's keeping you from them. I have had so much success asking just simple questions like, not only will I help you and find the book, let me make some phone calls and let me go and see who else I can talk to. And let me look on the internet. Oh, while you're researching, you know what? I'm a researcher. I work at a library for a reason. While you're researching, I'll just be over here researching too. Let me just share what I found with you also.
I
They're
gotta say this.
amazing.
I gotta say this. In Bookstagram, I've acquired library science people. I didn't even know people go to college. Yeah, library. They got master degrees in research. You just say it. That's what I'm saying. They're experts in finding stuff. Utilize these people.
Absolutely. No, they're amazing. And in terms of like, what's it like? So when you walk in these rooms, and I was fortunate to go recently with one of my friends to Georgia, and we went and got to see, we got to go in the archives, and it was amazing. But you go in to the courthouse, and it's just row after row after row, like you said, of these binders. You're like, where do I even begin? How do I find my grandparent or my great grandparent or whoever that I'm looking for in 3 rooms of books? But it's there. It's there. And like I said, that's what the staff are there for, is to help you. But yeah, some of these records are online. To open a book. So for example, I was at the National Archives looking at pension records from Civil War vets, Black Civil War vets. To open this file, they literally hand you paper that your ancestor wrote on. You are touching the paper that they wrote on with their pen or pencil or quill or whatever the heck they were using. That feeling will never match looking on your computer screen in your pajamas at a document. It's 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 almost like it transports you into that time and that place with your ancestors. It's amazing.
Now, also to go along with that conversation, man, our people in particular, like you said earlier, a lot of times things got passed down like quilts and music and everything, right? But also the amount of folks that like the black church is a good one, the black church. In the old days, most of the main records at the church, your birth record, people got married when you died. So whenever we see it online, people doing these hate crimes and burning down churches, you're losing archives, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Not a physical structure, you losing records in there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these churches are old, from hundreds of years ago churches.
And they're the only place it exists. It's
That's what
not
I'm saying.
digitized. It's nowhere else. It's a book.
Nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I went to my family church in Michigan. Like I said, I have family from Michigan. I went to my family's church in Michigan, and they just pull out these giant ledgers that people just, oh, okay, there was a baptism today. Let's write down the names of all the people who are baptized. Here's their first, middle, and last name. Here's the names of their parents. Here's their baptismal name, because it's Catholic, right? So you have a baptismal name. Here's the date. Here's their godparents. Those don't exist anywhere. I was like, take picture, every page. I don't even have family on half of these pages. Let me just get these, take a picture. Some of them are faded because they're in whatever kind of pen that wasn't ink that was designed to last 5,000 million years, right? It was like, we just got to take this down.
It's not being stored in like a climate
No,
control, special kind of
no,
the little white gloves. They turn the page like not like that.
no,
Yeah, here,
no.
take these records. Here you go.
Right. Even some of the courthouses, I've had friends go down to some courthouses. They're like, Mica, the stuff is just in the mildew basement. And they are almost in tears. They're like, it's just stacked on top of tables with cobwebs. You're like, this is our history. This is all, it's our history.
Because I love befriending people. I have a used bookstore owner, the book rack here in Louisiana. We was talking intimately about, like, let's say I bring in that big old trunk of used books. Boom, here you go. You don't know where them books came from.
Correct.
So those little micro, small, they call them bookworms for real. And other little things you have inside the book you can't really see with the eye, that could be in there.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta be careful. You gotta be infesting your place.
Mm-hmm.
What you just said, if these records is in a mildew, cobweb filled place, some of those things eat pages, like literally.
Correct. Mildew,
You're,
especially.
you're damaging so many records.
Mm-hmm.
So many
Mm-hmm.
records getting damaged.
And when they're gone, there's literally nothing to replace them. It is gone except DNA. But besides DNA, there's nothing to replace it.
That's hot. That's hot. That's hot. I don't want to keep you. I'm gonna go down to one last thing before we get out of here. Get you up out of here. On your website, you mentioned on your bio, you love to travel.
I do.
I love to travel. So first of all, tell me your favorite place you've ever been. Like, man, this place is oh my god. Give me that.
Okay.
And then somewhere you want to go.
So my favorite place I've ever been is Lisbon, Portugal. It's the capital of Portugal. It's like no other part of Europe. First of all, Portugal is browner. They had slaves. They did the same nonsense most of the rest of the area did, but people were allowed to come back early. So they have a more diverse population. You walk down the street, you're not like, oh, there's a brown person walking through Europe. It's a totally different feel. And the food and the water. Oh, Portugal's amazing. So that's my top place I've ever been. I've been there a couple times, loved it. Where do I want to go?
She said a
So
couple.
I've been there a couple times. Because remember, I did a study abroad when I lived in Spain, so it's not that far from there.
Oh, you live there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
I was there like
Flight
6
flex.
months. Yeah. So
Flight flex.
yeah. So the place I want to go, gosh, today I was talking with my friends about Jamaica. That's definitely on the list. But I really want to spend more time in a few different places. I can't even pick one. You see me like struggling to pick just one place. So I want to spend more time in South America. The history down there is amazing and not talked about accurately.
I've been
Ooh.
military to the
Mhm.
country. So we did a whole 6 month tour all over South America.
Oh, well, I'll talk about that later because I definitely
No,
want to go.
unfortunately, I was 18, 19 years old. I wasn't really an avid reader back then.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't able to slow myself down and really take in the culture and like I
Mm-hmm.
really would do at this point in my life. I would love to go back to
Yeah.
my current knowledge and really, really get in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were
No.
trying to party and trying to club and trying to find clothes and we was 18 with kids, man.
Yeah. You're just doing what kids do, getting to see somewhere else. And yeah, absolutely. At the other, let's see, where else do I really want to go? So people are like, I want to go to Africa, but that's a continent. You need to lower that. I know I just said South America, but that's a much smaller continent. But I really want to go. I want to go to places. I want to go to Mozambique. I want to go to Botswana. I really want to go to Botswana. There's not much there, quote unquote,
So
but yeah.
it's a big circle, right? This is why I want to
Mm-hmm.
do the African DNA test thing. I would love to get more pinpoint as to where I'm from to be able to specifically study and visit that place.
Mm-hmm.
I spent years studying Africa as the continent, just in general, overall. But to be able to like, take that lens and really zoom it, I would love to
Mm-hmm.
be able to do that.
Yeah. 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 It'd be, I can't even imagine being able to go to some of the places where I have blood ties. But I know for me, part of why they're not high on my list is the emotional healing and simultaneous trauma that will occur. I'm not in the headspace for it right now.
Have you seen that Samuel Jackson documentary came out like probably 3 or 4 years ago? Whenever he went back to the literal tribe where he's from,
Mm-hmm.
that was powerful and emotional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, the Henry Louis Gates famous series about finding your roots. All
Mm-hmm.
these celebrities on there tracing back,
Mm-hmm.
their people. So it is highly emotional, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I write about and I speak all the time about the importance of travel, in my opinion. Give the family before we leave. Give the family some of the things you like the benefit of traveling. For those that don't travel or they're against traveling, or maybe you just can't for whatever reason. Tell some of the benefits of travel.
I think the biggest thing is you learn that the world isn't what you think it is. So if you're from somewhere and you've only ever been there or a couple other places, that's how you think everybody, I can't speak for everybody, a lot of people who have not traveled think there's one way of being in the world because everybody they know thinks like them, acts like them. When you travel, you see there's no such thing as the way to be in the world. There are thousands of right ways to be. There's different, everything is different. Even things that we take for granted, like do we make eye contact? Do we not make eye contact? Do we slurp with our spoon? Do we not slurp with our spoon? What's appropriate? What's not appropriate? That is all so situational. And I think you also learn about yourself because you have to come out of your comfort zone to travel. You can't be the one who knows everything because you're going somewhere where you aren't in charge or in control.
So, do you have multiple languages in your mastery?
I do. I do. So English, obviously. I started learning Spanish when I was in 6th grade, only because people thought I should know it because I look like I should speak it. Does that make sense? I look like I should speak it. So now I do. Um, yeah. So English, Spanish, I know some German. I used to know more. I lost a lot of it. I know some Portuguese. I know a little bit of French. I know a little bit of sign language. I think that's all I got.
Okay, look at you. Look at you.
I'm working on it. But I get it from my mom. My mom speaks even more than that. And now my daughter, I put her in Spanish immersion school. So she was starting out with 2. She hit middle school. She's like, but I want to learn French. But now I want to learn Czech. But now I want to learn German. I was like, okay, passing it down.
So I can't remember it right now in my head. It's a word I learned 2 months ago. If you can speak like 10 or more languages, it's a certain word.
Oh, goals.
But yeah.
All right. I got goals. I got goals.
You're getting there. I started learning Spanish about 3 months ago. I got the Babbel app. They had a sale for holidays. Every day doing Spanish, a little app doing Spanish and stuff like that. But like, I want to travel more. It's one of my life goals. So I would love to be able to speak more languages and be able to really, really blend in and do my thing when I travel.
Traveling is so different if you know what's going on language-wise. Polyglot. Ooh. Polyglot.
The chat's so damn smart. I love it.
Yeah. It's so different if you know the language. It changes everything. I was in China, not knowing Chinese. That's a really hard place to be.
Been there too. Been there. Yeah. It is different.
Yeah.
It is different. Well, I guess the advantage is, unfortunately, so much of the world is so westernized, probably especially now. I was overseas before social media, before smartphones. I can only imagine how westernized everywhere else is now.
Same. Yeah.
So it's probably easier to navigate, even if you don't know the language. You can probably find your way around.
Well, Google Translate. For Google Translate, you just put up your phone, you speak in your one language, it changes it for you, and then the other person speaks in their languages, and you literally having a full conversation with your phone being the translator.
Yep. Because at my job at the hospital, we have a lot of brown people that come in, and they can't speak English, and they just come in there showing me their phone, like, look. And I'm like, trying to, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, but people in, like, I want to say Chicago and New York specifically, maybe even like Houston or Atlanta, Georgia, like they got so much pride in where they're from. They're not as inclined like to leave, like to travel. They love the city so much. They love Chicago so much. Like, I'm staying right here. Our 14's better. Our pizza better. Our hip hop is better. Like, in their mind, it's like nothing else in this globe. But this radius, it's like, you gotta get out of that, man.
You do. And maybe you travel and you're like, oh, now I know I'm right. Or you travel, but at least you're basing it on something. I actually saw something else, so I can now say it's amazing, or I can be like, well, it's good, but I can see how other places have these other things that we don't have.
So as we're concluding and wrapping up, give them your website and your social media handle. Man, please contact us. She's a real cool person off the mic. Real cool. She's not front. She's a cool person. Very brilliant, you can tell. Give them the contact.
So again, I'm Micha Anders, last name Anders. And if you need a whole lot of letters, my social is Anders Genealogical Services. But you can find it really easily if you just search for me. My first name's unique. My last name's unique. So you just look up Micha Anders and I pop up all over the place. Anders Genealogical Services.
This show is in the top 3 as far as fun facts. I haven't even been reading my questions. I'm just talking. We're just kicking it.
We're just having a conversation.
But the way that my show was made for me, I'm not trying to have a stiff interview. Like we homies kicking it, and people are watching us. That's how I want my show to be. Relax, laid back. So we did just that. So I feel satisfied with our show.
That's awesome. I had a great time, and you guys in the chat did an awesome job. It's been real fun
Yes.
seeing all your comments
The
as
chat
well.
is amazing. Thank y'all very much for y'all coming and participating. And it will be up on YouTube after this live. Anybody want to share it out to your friends and family and go back to it. And I'll be here next week with Dr. Daniel Black talking about his book, Becoming, about the transatlantic slave trade.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yes, Dr. Black on the slave trade. So I'll be here next week. I'll see y'all next time on Sean P. Presents. Peace.